All right, guys, we're going to start here in a couple minutes. I guess I can take the mask off since I'm the only one in the office right now. Thank you for everybody that's joining us today. We're going to start in about 3 to 4 minutes. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. I know we had some issues before, so if you can't hear me, send me a message. We'll get it figured out or comment. But we're going to get this thing started in about 3 minutes. The Coronapocalypse, surviving unemployment and debt. If you can't hear me, let me know. Hey, what's going on, Michael? I hope you're going to join me. Maybe you can teach me some things about what to do with the IRS. Should I still be paying that payroll tax or no? Or are we on a payroll tax holiday? Hey, Judge Phil, thanks for joining as well. You're really knowing this up. Thank you, Francesca. I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback. We're gonna get started here in about 2 minutes. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Also, I created a poll. Has coronavirus negatively impacted your financial life? So I'm publishing that poll right now, making that active. I have a feeling that the majority of people are going to say yes, but Mr. Sullivan, no, it hasn't. So good. So make sure you go down to the poll question and answer that if you could. I'm just trying to get a little feedback on how this has impacted my audience, the people that I'm working with. We're looking at about 50-50 right now, 2/3 yes. So this is great. We're about a minute out before we're going to get started. We already have 10 guests on, so thanks for jumping in early. If you have any questions, also you can also just put those into the comment section. I'll make sure I answer those throughout the poll as well. All right, I'm going to show the results in the video. Perfect. All right, 14 guests. All right, we're going to get started a little early. So Coronapocalypse, surviving unemployment and debt. Make sure you guys are wearing your masks. I had my mask on. I had no idea that this coronavirus pandemic would last so long and has so much financial impact on so many people for such a long period of time. So we're going to go through different strategies on how to deal with this. I feel like some people were set up maybe for a month, maybe for 2 months, but I think now we're into about 6 months of this and the negative impacts for 6 months. So the first topic we're going to cover is how to manage debt while you're unemployed or you have a reduced income. I know that especially in South Florida, many people that work in the hospitality industry have just gotten crushed. If you're a bartender and your bar closed, you went from making decent money during season to making zero. Same thing if you work in the hotel industry, if you work in any of those industries. So what do you do if you're unemployed or have a reduced income? First, if you're unemployed, obviously apply for all the government help. There still is enhanced unemployment. From what I understand from speaking with my clients, the unemployment online system has gotten better. So there have been some issues with it, but it's gotten better. So use that lifeline as much as you can. Also look to your county and look to the city for different vouchers for rent and any other government assistance that you can find. Also, I know we're in the gig economy. I have a lot of clients that have started new businesses, whether it's selling things online, OfferUp through Facebook. I have a lot of friends that are doing that as well. If you own any exercise equipment, that seems to be in demand right now, so you can get a pretty penny for that. Also, we still have Uber, Lyft, different things that you can do if you have a vehicle that can keep income coming in to at least keep the lights on, keep food on the table until you get back to a normal income. Now, if you do have credit cards, obviously you don't want to rack up credit card debt through this pandemic, but if it's your only way to live, you gotta use it. So use them wisely. If you have credit card debt, a lot of the credit card companies are putting deferment or forbearance in. Make sure you document everything because they'll come back later and say, oh, we never got the forbearance request, and they'll start dinging your credit, which will cause higher interest rates later. So make sure you keep everything documented either through email or letters. That way, if something happens in the future, I can help you clean it up or you can get it cleaned up. Things that you might not want to put on credit, those higher ticket items like rent, anything that are significant payments, you want to try to avoid getting your credit up, especially if you're paying high interest rates. If you have to survive, I don't blame you for doing it. But always reach out to the credit card companies to see if you can reduce those interest rates. Many of the companies, especially if you have a long-term relationship with them, are actually willing to do that. Always remember that utilization rate is the number one factor in determining your credit score. So the higher those balances are and the utilization rate is higher, then it's going to cause your credit score to go down, which could be an issue. Also, try not to default, keep up with the minimum payments, or go into forbearance instead of just stop paying. I know that a lot of us get down. We all go through mild depression to severe depression while dealing with this. But just don't go into a hole and not pay attention to this, because it can sneak up to you. Credit card companies are still filing lawsuits. I'm still seeing garnishments come in from old judgments, especially. So just be on top of it, because I'd hate for you to go back to work and then they're taking 25% off of your paycheck. If you do have higher interest rates and your credit is still good and you still have income coming in, try to see if you can do a balance transfer to another credit card that maybe gives you 0% for 12 months, or look at some sort of consolidation loan. I'd recommend trying to stay away from consolidation companies where you're going to get into one payment and they're going to try to renegotiate. Generally speaking, they're charging you a pretty high percentage to renegotiate, and it's going to negatively impact your credit. So I generally speaking don't like that. Um, if none of those options are working for you, and you're seeing the writing on the wall, like if you cannot afford the lower minimum payments, you're finding yourself behind, um, that's when you want to start considering looking at your bankruptcy options, whether it's Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13. Chapter 7 would be your liquidation. If you don't really have many assets, if your income's below the median income, then you can file the Chapter 7. If not, you do the Chapter 13, where you pay a portion of the debt over a 3 to 5 year period and you receive a discharge at the end. We got a couple questions coming in. What's the difference between debt settlement and bankruptcy? Debt settlement is exactly what it sounds like. A company like ours, a law firm or an outside company, reaches out to the creditors and tries to negotiate a number that works for both parties. Generally speaking, debt settlement works whenever you have fewer creditors. So if you have one or two major creditors and you have an ability to make payment, just not the full payment, the interest and everything on top of that. So it usually turns into an installment type loan at 0%, where you'll get on a 3 to 5 year payment with the creditor directly. That's if you work with us. If you work with a consolidation company, they try to consolidate everything into one, make the payment to them, and then they make the payment to the creditor. That's why it ends up being a little more expensive. Bankruptcy, as I said, there's generally speaking two chapters that consumers will file. Chapter 7 is a liquidation, where you're debt free in about 3 months, beginning to end. You generally speaking don't pay anything back unless you're above the exemption limit. Chapter 13 is basically a forced debt settlement. So we put a budget together and you get on a 3 to 5 year payment plan. The good thing about the Chapter 13 versus the debt settlement, there's really no negotiation. It's more of a formulaic approach, where once you get us your assets, your income, your expenses, we can say, here's going to be your monthly payment. And we're usually pretty close, and the creditors can object and you can work through it. But that's more formulaic than the debt settlement or debt negotiation. So if you have unsecured debt and you have funds to settle, once again, you might want to consider that debt settlement. The debt settlement process, generally speaking, works somewhere between 4 to 6 months. In that time, you are in default, so your credit will be taking a hit during that. Generally speaking, the creditors will not negotiate settlements unless you are in default. So if you give them a call, they may lower your interest rate, but they're generally speaking not going to make it into an installment loan. So let's move on to car loans, leases. So if you have a car loan, if you have a lease, but you can't make the payment, the first step should be reach out to your lender. Have that open communication. If you've had a relationship with the lender in the past, they may be able to work with you now. I know that many car companies are giving you 3 to 6 months off of the payment, or 3 to 6 months deferment, putting it on the back end. If you really can't keep your payment at all, there are options within bankruptcy. Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. Chapter 7 has something called a 722 redemption, which is really good for cars that are underwater. If you owe a lot more than what the car is worth, then we can refinance the vehicle down to current market value and get you a new loan. The loan terms aren't fantastic, but usually it's much better because it's a much less loan than what you're paying right now. In a Chapter 13, you can do something similar where they can lower the interest rate down to around 5 to 6% and pay it over a 3 to 5 year plan, and that's called a cram down in a Chapter 13. Alternatively, you can walk away from the car. If you're going to walk away with the lender, make sure you try to avoid the deficiency. What a deficiency is when you give the when you give the vehicle back to the lender, they're going to sell it, and whatever the difference is between what they sell it for and what you owe, they're going to come after you for it, get a judgment. If they're not willing to walk away from that, you want to try to negotiate that. If you can't negotiate it, then you want to go through a Chapter 7 or 13, potentially depending on how much it is, to get rid of that debt. So we had a question about bankruptcy. How do you afford bankruptcy if you're broke? That's a normal question that we get. What we're doing to help people out, give access to the system, is we're not charging attorney's fees and all the costs actually down for Chapter 7. As long as you come up with the filing fee for a standard Chapter 7, which is $335, that's the court's filing fee. Generally speaking, we'll get you filed. Chapter 13, you're looking around $500 to $600 in costs to get filed, and then any fees are deferred through the Chapter 13 payment plan. Another question that I get many times from clients is, well, when am I going to get my credit back? The good thing is, if you file with us, we're going to put you into something that's called 720creditscore.com. The goal is in 12 to 18 months to get you back around that 720 credit score. I have many clients that a year to two after filing, you're going to qualify for a mortgage. You'll start getting those lower interest rates on vehicles again. Believe it or not, after bankruptcy, after about 4 months when you get your discharge and everything's closed, you're going to get credit card offers immediately. So when you get those credit cards, we walk you through the process of which ones to take, what to look out for. Obviously, we don't want you to run up credit again, but you need to reestablish credit, or you're not going to have any credit profile. So we need to really make sure that you're reestablishing credit, staying current with any good credit that you have, and then you'll rebuild. The FHA, if you're looking for an FHA loan to buy a property, they say that you'll qualify 24 months after filing for bankruptcy. So I'm looking at the poll. So it looks like 78% of the people that responded, coronavirus has negatively impacted your financial life. So I certainly am in that category. Things were certainly going really, really well. January, February, got married in February, went on my honeymoon in March, and then came back, and it was a different world, to say the least, from when I left. If you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to answer any of your questions as well. Just put those into the comment box, and I'll make sure that I answer them. If you need a one-on-one time with me, we do free consultations. If you go to chadvh.com, chadvh.com, or call us at 954-637-0000. I'll do a one-on-one with you. I know that a lot of people don't want to put their information out there. One of the things that's going to be positive that comes out of this coronavirus pandemic is the stigma of bankruptcy. I think is going to be completely gone. I read an article yesterday where the number one reason people don't file bankruptcy, it's not because it would financially benefit them. They don't know if it would financially benefit them. It's because the fear of the unknown, the shame. So many people that were in a good situation that would never need my help are calling me now. Friends, family, acquaintances that I've known throughout the years that through no fault of their own or ended up using the bankruptcy system. So don't feel ashamed of it. It's more of a business decision than ever. I always tell my clients, if it ever pops up in an interview or they pull your credit, what happened with regards to in 2020, why did you file bankruptcy? Your answer is simple. 2020 happened, the pandemic, my industry got shut down, and unfortunately, there are going to be millions of people that file bankruptcy. within the next year or two due to this pandemic. It's gonna resemble what happened back when the bubble burst back in 2007, 2008, unfortunately. But we are here to help. We're here weekdays 9 to 7, weekends on Saturday 10 to 3. Also, there's two books that I've published within the last couple of years. The Debt Life, which gives you personal stories of other people that have survived bankruptcy and other debt-related issues that we've worked with, and Bankruptcy in Florida, which breaks down the bankruptcy process. Um, let's see if we have any other questions coming in. Oh, oh shoot, I didn't scroll down. All right, so I got one here. Can IRS taxes be discharged in bankruptcy? Michael, thank you for asking that question. So you are the tax expert, but within bankruptcy, I guess I know a little bit. So generally speaking, IRS taxes can be discharged in bankruptcy if they're older than 3 years. There are some other criteria that come to that. If they're income tax older than 3 years, the rule of thumb is they can. If you weren't filing your taxes timely, that could be challenged, and there's some other issues with that as well. But people are always interested to find out that certain government debt, like back Social Security, if you were overpaid by Social Security, that's also dischargeable. So not all government debt is non-dischargeable. Now, if you were stealing from the IRS, if you owned a company and you weren't doing the trust fund taxes, then that's non-dischargeable. And I'd have to send you to somebody like Michael Sullivan to work that out. And if it's newer than the 3 years, then you're going to want to go through an offer and compromise or work out a payment plan. Brian, you have medical debt that hasn't been paid in years. Can they sue you? The answer is yes. Medical debt can sue. Some decide not to, but they are allowed to sue. The statute of limitations in Florida is 5 years. Even after the 5 years, they can sue you, and then you have to raise that affirmative defense. But after 5 years, you should be fine where they wouldn't come after you. After 7 years, it would fall off your credit. Michael Sullivan, does your federal tax lien go away? It's similar to that earlier question. The tax lien can be reduced down to what the value of your assets are. It won't go away completely unless you have no assets. Can your student debt go away? In certain circumstances, student debt can go away in bankruptcy, be discharged. The rule of thumb is, generally speaking, it's not. With private student loans, we've done a good job at negotiating with them. With federal student loans, there are ways to get you into different forgiveness programs that we work with. What's the best way to handle hospital bills if you're on a fixed income? From Julia. The best way to handle your hospital bills is, once again, to work with the hospital directly. There are a lot of nonprofits out there that will work to help cover some of your hospital bills. If you're having financial trouble and you can prove it to the hospital, generally speaking, they're not going to want to sue you. Cheryl, behind on property tax, are there any options? Certainly, there are options on property tax. In Broward County, make sure you don't become 3 years behind on your property tax, because that's when tax deed sales come into play and they can actually sell your property. So before that happens, you can go into a Chapter 13, pay those property taxes over a 5-year period. Also, you can try to work out payment plans with the county or with whoever purchased the tax certificate. Francesca, do you automatically lose your car in bankruptcy? You do not, actually. So in Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you get a $1,000 vehicle exemption and a $4,000 wild card exemption. So if you have equity less than that, you get to keep your car. And to figure out how much equity you have in a vehicle, you take the amount of secured debt on the vehicle and then look at the value of the vehicle. And if that value is above the secured debt, you have to calculate that. And so if you're in that $1,000 to $5,000 range, you should be good as long as you don't have other assets. If you have a lease, generally speaking, is not an asset. Unless you paid 3 years ahead on the lease, then that could be an asset, but that's not really an issue. And then with the vehicle, if you are above the exemptions, you could look at a Chapter 13 where you get in a 3 and 5 year payment plan. Where in Chapter 13, they're not looking to take any of your assets, but you do have to make good faith payments to the creditors. Gene, paying for bankruptcy when you're bankrupt. Thanks for clarifying. Hey, my pleasure. If you have any questions on that, let me know. I know it really is an access to justice system. A lot of people need the bankruptcy system, especially the people that are going through garnishment, where their wages are being taken 25%, bank accounts are frozen. But it's hard to come up with $1,000, $2,000, whatever the number is, all at once when that's happening. So we make sure that if we can, we give you access to the system. What happens in January after the forbearance for student loan expires and you're still having difficulty paying? Um, well, obviously there's a big election coming up in a couple months. Make sure you register to vote. Um, we'll see what happens in January. The way it's going, it looks like there's going to be some sort of an extension of that. Obviously, there's income-based repayment, there's forbearance, there's other options if you're still struggling, but just stay tuned because nothing has been decided yet. I know, but a lot has been kicked out till the end of the year, so I think a lot will be decided in November. Student loans, after all the forbearance is over, you're still underemployed. How does one handle them? So if you're unemployed, if you don't have income, the number one mistake I see with people that are unemployed and dealing with federal student loans is they put it in forbearance. If your income is zero, if you're unemployed, your income-based repayment, uh, uh, your income-based repayment number would be zero because you don't have income, so your payment would be zero. So what I would do is call the servicer and say my income's zero, my payment should be zero, and then you recertify 12 months later instead of putting that in forbearance because that actually is each one of those $0 monthly payments is a qualifying payment for loan forgiveness. So that's really, really important. Gene, you want to know a little bit about debt consolidation and loans? Yeah, happy to do that. So it's very important that you don't put the two together, debt consolidation and consolidation loans. So consolidation loans is going to a company like SoFi, who make Prosper. They have very good online systems, or your local bank saying, hey, I need a loan because I need a $10,000 loan because I have 5 credit cards that are $10,000 that are all at 24% interest. I'd like an installment loan for 10,000 that'll pay off those credit cards at a lower interest rate, maybe 9%, and I'll pay it off over 36 to 60 months. Now that doesn't negatively impact your credit. Make sure though, I have a lot of clients that unfortunately they take out that consolidation loan and then they start using the credit cards again, and then you have two payments that you just can't make. So that would be a consolidation loan that you just get through a company. Now, debt consolidation or what we call debt negotiation or debt settlement is when you actually stop paying your creditors altogether because you can't afford to pay them, and then you have a company like ours that reaches out to them to negotiate. Now, that is going to negatively impact your credit. Generally speaking, 4 to 6, 6 to 8 months, you'll be able to negotiate an amount down with the debt collector, and you get on a payment plan with them directly. Or if you do some sort of credit consolidation, you'll pay the consolidation company, and then they pay. They just charge a little more money for that processing, but they'll make it a little easier for you because you're making a payment to them, and then they figure out who gets paid what. Gene, if that didn't answer your questions, just let me know, and I'll make sure we'll do that. Um, Lydia, you saved your stimulus check for emergencies. That's great. I remember as soon as the stimulus check came out, all the big box retailers like Best Buy, Walmart came out with TVs on sale for $1,200. So I feel like a lot of people use that, unfortunately, for TVs. So it's good that you saved that. Will that be an issue for bankruptcy? Once again, you have certain exemptions that you can use in bankruptcy. Generally speaking, $1,000 personal property, $1,000 vehicle, $4,000 wild card if you don't own a homestead. Everybody, generally speaking, knows about the homestead exemption, which will save your property. You really want somebody to look through all of your assets to tell you what's exempt versus what's not exempt. Go piecemeal on it like this could be dangerous because your stimulus check of $1,200 could be exempt because if you don't own a homestead and you have $5,000 worth of exemptions and you don't have any other money or significant assets, then it could be exempt. But if your name was on somebody else's car or there's some other asset, you just got to be really, really careful. But that's great that you're saving for emergencies. I feel like a lot of people have already went through their emergency fund. Back to Eugene. If you're getting unemployed veteran, if you're getting unemployment veteran benefits, public benefits, Social Security, and file for bankruptcy, will you lose the money? Um, Actually, those are all exempt. So as long as you don't commingle those funds with other funds, those would be exempt. So if you're putting all of your Social Security benefits into one bank account and those are exempt funds, all those funds are exempt. So you shouldn't lose any of those. But once again, if you have specific questions, feel free to set up a time to speak with me as well. Um, all right. Glenn, yeah, I can't wait to be at the Legacy Conference as well. Steve, thank you. You're the best. Appreciate you. The wild card amount, Francesca, the wild card amount is $4,000. And once again, that wild card is if you're not taking the benefit of a homestead. So if you don't own real property in Florida, the wild card is 4,000. If you get unemployment money, can it be garnished? Can, that would be really messed up. If you're getting unemployment money, it could be garnished. So they can't garnish it directly from the state, but if it went into a bank account, any bank account can be frozen, and then you have to claim exemptions. That would be one of the exemptions that you can claim. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do. I can walk you through that process. It's one form, and and yeah, we can certainly walk you through that. Are there any other questions before? I know we're coming up on the time here. Uh, I'm going to close the poll. So it seems like most people have coronavirus has negatively impacted most of the people on this 78%. The 22% that it hasn't, good for you. Um, so we're at about 27 minutes. If there's any final questions, just let me know. I really appreciate you guys coming in. We're trying to get better every time. We're trying to get more information out there. The more free information I can put out there to help you out, I certainly will. Make sure that if you're getting my last thing is make sure if you're getting any lawsuits, any foreclosure actions, any eviction actions, get an attorney involved early, even if it's a free consultation with me where I can give you some information. Because if they're getting these default judgments, once this moratorium against evictions and foreclosures ends, there's just going to be a ton of foreclosure sale dates, a ton of evictions, and I really don't want to see that in my community because homelessness is a real thing already in Fort Lauderdale and Broward. We certainly don't need more people out there on the streets. So hopefully the landlords out there will work with you. If they won't, come see me. I'll do everything I can to help you out. Um, Thank you for the kind words, everybody. If you need anything else from me, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, everybody thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, everybody, for participating. It really makes this worthwhile. So, once again, I'm Chad Van Horn from Van Horn Law Group. I hope this is very helpful. We're going to do this again really soon. All right. Thank you, guys.